Ohio State is 4-0 after last week's blowout of Wisconsin, ranked number 3 in the country, but a close number 3 to Alabama, pushing for better spot. And the defense has improved a lot since last year in almost any facet. If you're nitpicking things about this team right now, cornerback play has been an issue, either performance on the field, and now what was already a small room scholarship-wise, only 6 guys and 5 are first or second-year players, and your top 3 guys were injured last week. Ryan Day says he thinks Cam Brown and Denzel Burke could be back against Rutgers on Saturday, but looking just long-term between level of play and the health and how precarious that's going to be, can the cornerback room be, whatever your opinion, Stephen, is, however you diagnose this question, can this cornerback room be championship caliber in 2022?
No, but I also don't think it prevents them from winning a national title, and it's just because of what other personnel is. You know, there's only probably 2 teams between last Saturday and the next couple of weeks here who had a run game who could have exposed that, and Wisconsin didn't do it. They decided to just run up the middle and have Braylon Allen run for 3.5 yards per carry every single time, so that nixes that out. So now it's like, okay, let's look forward to the Penn State game. Well, Denzel Burke and Cameron Brown might be back into the lineup by that point, and we'll see on Jordan Hancock. Things aren't looking good for him this year. It's one with the way Ryan Day is both the words he's saying and also the faces he's making as he's saying those words. We'll see with him. But if Cameron Brown and Denzel Burke are back by that Penn State game, I'm a little bit more comfortable because there is experience there. Even if they're not, Jair Brown and J.K. Johnson are slowly getting that experience to where they might be ready by then. So then you start thinking, okay, who's got wide receivers that might be a problem covering? USC. So now we're talking about a playoff game at that point. So it's this thing with Ohio State. They always have these things where it's like they have a problem, but also they spend weeks not having anybody who can like actually attack that problem. So you don't know if the problem is actually getting fixed. I think they can get through this entire year with average cornerback play at best and still probably win a national title because everything else around the cornerbacks is so much better.
I'm glad you brought up Penn State. I think the issue with Wisconsin was not that Wisconsin didn't have the personnel. I thought that was a terribly coached offensive game from Wisconsin. Like, I don't know what they thought they were accomplishing in that game, and maybe they didn't know that Denzel Burke and Cam Brown were both going to be out. They had to do at least suspected Cam Brown might not play because he left in the middle of the previous week. I think they did not come in with the contingency to attack Ohio State where it was already vulnerable and became even more vulnerable when those guys couldn't play. So I don't think it's a personnel question. I think Rutgers is going to probably challenge these cornerbacks more than what Wisconsin did, because I think Greg Schiano is a better coach than Paul Chryst, and I think he's going to come in with a better plan of attack. We'll see. And so then I'm looking ahead. What cost Ohio State last year against Oregon was not necessarily Oregon's superior personnel, is because you had a guy in Joe Moorhead, the offensive coordinator, who came in and saw the vulnerability that Ohio State had in certain areas and just relentlessly attacked it. And Ohio State had no response. Oregon won the coaching battle that day. There's going to be a battle here at some point between a better coach than what Wisconsin was going with last week, between Chryst and Ingram, I guess. And I think it could be Penn State. It could be someone with personnel that doesn't bother you as much as Penn State, but somebody's going to come in and attack that corner better. So whether Brown and Burke are healthy again, I think the step is getting those guys healthy is important. I don't think you want to go into late season scenarios with, all due respect, J.K. Johnson and Jair Brown. You don't want to go in late this season with your 4th and 5th corners as your starters. And I agree with you that things don't sound great for Jordan Hancock being a big contributor this year. But if they can get Burke and Brown healthy, it stabilizes things. But both those guys have to play better too. I don't think we've necessarily seen – the defense has been better, but I don't know if we think the cornerback play has been high enough to win. I don't know if it's just USC. I think every playoff team that you're going to play at that point is going to have better personnel and better coaching, and they're going to be able to attack that vulnerability better than we've seen anybody do it so far.
I can agree with that. It's a little bit of one, let's get him healthy next couple of weeks here. I mean, we're still in the first half of the season, so it's a lot of football left to be played. But I agree with you. Denzel Burke's got to be better than what he was before the injury. Cameron Brown's had moments, so for him it's just like keep doing that and stay on the field, which we knew was going to be the case coming in this ways. How many weeks can Cameron Brown get through before an injury pops up, which is, I mean, that's his career. So it starts with those two. And then after that, it's can J.K. Johnson continue to take advantage of the reps he's getting? Is Jair Brown starting to flash? Because then you start to build a little bit of depth, even if the room is small. That'll be fixed, quite frankly, next year when Cameron Brown's the only guy who's leaving this room. But that's the plain and simple. That's what it is. Denzel Burke must be better. Cameron Brown's got to stay healthy, and then those two guys behind them who are getting these reps take full advantage of them, so they do have depth by the time we get to December.
Now, if I'm going to bring up Oregon, I have to bring up the two counterpoints off of that, which is, number one, this defense is better overall. It wasn't just some vulnerabilities that Ohio State had on the edge last year that cost them in that game. It was that compounded by other issues they had, whether it was Josh Proctor getting hurt, whether it was poor linebacker play at that point of the season, and not even knowing that Steel Chambers should be playing linebacker yet at that point of the season. Like, there were definitely layers of problems with that defense. And last year when Oregon attacked them that way, they had no response from the coaching booth, and this year I think they would. I think that Jim Knowles is probably already figuring out, like, well, if this is who we still have at corner and it's a month from now, here's the things that Ohio State can try to do to work with that and minimize the damage and get the offense back on the field as soon as possible. More talk about this later this week on Buckeye Talk, and get the text 614-350-3315. News, analysis, intel all week from Buckeye Talk.